Good evening. Welcome to a Thursday live. It's really evening. I am Nadine Vosloo, better known as Mama Tjhoko, and we've decided to do the Thursday live a bit different today. We are going to have a Q&A session. You ask questions, you ask for advice, and I am here to assist to the best of my ability to make sure that everything that you need assistance with, we make sure we get an answer or a solution to that. Now, it doesn't matter from where you are watching, to those that are not within the borders of South Africa, whether you are in Ireland, Scotland, Switzerland, Dubai, the UK, the Netherlands, welcome to a chilly South Africa for a change. We really do have winter in the Eastern Cape. Okay, we are going to kick off. Kaylee will show me if there are any questions, and while we are waiting for questions, I'm also going to share just some simple tips and tricks with you, and these themes or ideas or techniques that I will be showing can be applied to any surface, whether it's a wall, whether it's a furniture item, whether it's a canvas or a piece of art. With live sessions, it's easier to do on smaller surfaces, but these techniques can be applied to whichever surface. My fingers are itching to do it on a wall surface. So I'm going to show until there's a question appearing on the screen. What I have done is I have rolled one layer of Tjhoko Davet, on my canvas. I think I've removed the bottle, but Tjhoko is so versatile that it can be used on almost any surface. These canvases I've used for previous lives, and I'm now just going to build onto them with different techniques. So there is a coat of Tjhoko onto my canvas. Tjhoko can also be applied to wall surfaces. If you like a matte finish, you can absolutely paint with Tjhoko on walls. The finish is a matte finish. You can also use Tjhoko as a chalkboard paint. Any of the colors. It doesn't need to be black. And you can write with chalk on your Tjhoko painted surface. Now what I'm going to do next is I have a piece of brown paper, and I'm just going to scrunch it. Okay. And I'm going to open it. So some of the questions that I've received in the past is, Nadine, what is the most difficult, or whoever that you've worked with was the most difficult client? And the answer there is myself. And I think when you do things for yourself, is you just see so many options, so many possibilities, and then it is a daunting task. When we work for clients, we sit, we take time, we find the things that they like, and then we use that and limit the options. Because the more options you have, the more difficult it becomes to make a decision. Okay, so on my surface, I've prepped with one coat, brown paper, I've scrunched it. And now the next most difficult thing is color choice. Now when we work in spaces, it's very important to keep into consideration the floor space that you have, because most of the times that is the surface that's the most expensive to replace. So everything that you use needs to work together. We say that colors marry. And if you're working, or if you are looking at the floor, that is the foundation of your story. And everything that you select needs to flow with what's happening on your floor. And that's also why it's so important when you are maybe a new builder, or having a new home, or busy with renovations, to select your floor covering very carefully. Because that's something that at a later stage is very costly and very difficult to change, because now you have all the furniture items that's standing on the floor, and you actually have to completely leave your dwelling or your home to renovate those floor surfaces. So color choices are very difficult, but it also depends on what's happening on your floor. Something that's very cost effective to change within a space is wall colors. So if you are changing or want to change walls, or repaint your walls, that is the one thing that's so cost effective and makes such a huge difference within a space. I started with Maestro on my brown paper. I'm now continuing with Goodness. So I'm working with green tones, and what I do is I just pour the paint onto my brown paper, just blobs here and there. So what colors do I paint walls? First of all, something that you need to keep into consideration is the natural light in a space. The more natural light there is, the darker the tones can be on your walls. The less natural light in a space, there you need to be very wise in terms of color selections. Okay, we have a question. Let's hear.
I have a question. I just want to ask you just to inform the viewers that this is a Q&A, that they just know because there's more viewers coming on.
Okay, so everyone, Kaylee has a question to ask. This session is actually a Q&A session. So you ask questions and I'm here to assist with the answers. So if you have questions, if you need advice with anything paint or decor related, I'm here to assist and help. What I have done on the brown paper, Kaylee will inform me the moment there is a question, is I have blobs of green, Goodness, Maestro, Cloud White, and I'm just going to add some Lady Lisa, just some drops, and you can even dilute these drops of paint with water, so this can actually be the last bits and drops of paint left in your Tjhoko console jar. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm using an ink roller and I'm rolling these colors together. Baby, I'm so sorry, can you zoom in from there? So I am rolling these colors together with the ink roller, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt it around, and with my ink roller, roll and roll. So stunning idea for a paint technique on a wall, and you will also see as I continue with this that it's actually a layered technique. Okay, so back at space renovations. Wall colors depends on what you have on your floors and the amount of natural light in a space. The more natural light, the darker. I'm just going to remove my scarf before everything is filled with paint. The more natural light, the darker the colors on your walls can be. Something like focal walls are still very much trendy. Color in space, I think we all are so concerned to work with color in a space, and that's something where you actually need to gain confidence and be adventurous when you attempt that. And I promise you, color is something that grows on one. So there's some. So I'm busy with the background for something amazing to happen on top. And I'm just using, can you see, I've only used those first few drops of paint and nothing after that. And I'm just continuing to roll with my brayer onto my painted surface to create color but also texture. Now the next thing, after you have now selected colors, is decide what decor style you are going to incorporate in your space. Okay, we have a question. Kaylee is going to ask a question. I'll repeat the question if it's not something that's audible due to sound, and then we'll give an answer. Okay, can you ask the question?
So they're asking, is there anything else besides lacquer thinners to clean the surfaces as it's built-in cupboards? And I can't see the rest of the message, I'm struggling, so...
Can you maybe scroll up? So the question is, can I use something besides lacquer thinners to clean something like built-in cupboards? Can you see the rest, girls? Okay, so let's quickly answer that question. Okay, so why lacquer thinners? I'm going to explain. What the lacquer thinners does, it removes any grease or grime or residue built up from the surface, and it actually edges the surface, and it's also chemical that evaporates, and it edges the surface so that Tjhoko can do the grip work. In countries like Switzerland and Ireland, we've also experimented with something like alcohol and acetone. Okay, you can ask, what's the rest of the question?
Okay, so I'm going to read it again.
Okay, you're going to read the question again. Let's start from scratch.
Is there anything else besides lacquer thinners to clean the surfaces as it's built in cupboards and it's very strong to work with?
Okay, so unfortunately, what the thinners does is it edges the surface. It cleans the surface so that it removes any grease, any grime, any residue built up, so that Tjhoko can do its grip work. What you need to do is make sure there's enough ventilation in the space. Don't pour the thinners into something else where there can be fumes in a space. Only work on that cloth and wash off the cupboards. It's still much easier than to sand down and then to paint with a solvent-based primer and then to start painting. So unfortunately, the thinners does what needs to happen to edge the surface, clean the surface, so that your paint work is a success. Some advice that I can give for the built-in cupboards is when you start with the paint work, after your thinners have evaporated completely, is to use a mohair roller in a 225mm size. So they are nice and big, like wall rollers, and it just gives such an even, beautiful finish to large, flat surfaces. But the thinners will be the best way of preparing that surface to make sure that your paint work is a huge success. Okay, so this step is now complete. Okay, now I'm going to try something different. And this is also with different textures, and if you have those last bits of paint, those last drops, to make sure that we don't waste and we just use everything. I have recently painted a cupboard for a holiday home in Magical Marina with a 250mm, and I was surprised about how far I could go with that one 250mm. It was a huge cupboard, the sides, the front, and even some of the inside shelves I could paint second coats. So you really do come far with Tjhoko. And the color range is just beautiful. Because I'm repeating the same steps. I'm actually going to work on here, else my entire counter will be full of Tjhoko. And I am starting with fine lining and then Comforts Blue. And I'm just sharing ideas. Use or lose, this is to create texture, less perfect techniques than a wash technique where you have more control over where you apply the paint. And this is actually a more free session. And let's add some Rihanna. So Rihanna is a very special friend, and currently she's in Italy, and she took some of our new stencil designs with to go test in a beautiful Italian home, and it is amazing. Okay, so This is now just a dishcloth, and I'm doing the same as what I've done with the brown paper, and I'm rolling out paint everywhere. I'm just going to make sure that there are some lighter tones as well. Now here's also a tip. When we do paint techniques, something to keep in mind is to always make sure that there's contrast. A nice distinction between lights and darks. Light colors, dark colors, or completely different colors. This is really a technique that I can't wait to do on a wall surface. And now I'm just going to tilt it. I'm actually not even going to tilt it around. I'm just going to leave it as is and press it through the fabric. I love it. Okay, so there is some ideas with your last drops of Tjhoko, so that nothing goes to waste. And this is such a beautiful backdrop. Now I have one that has dried, but I'm just going to leave this one, put it down so it can just cure for a moment. Okay, can you see? It's beautiful. So this is almost like a piece of art, and nothing else even needs to happen on top. Okay. I'm quickly going to share something that I've experimented with and that actually works so well. So I just want to make sure that it's nicely positioned so that you can see. I'm going to show with gold leaf or copper leaf how easy it is not to be wasteful and to adhere it onto a stencil design. So I'm going to make use of an artist brush. So I'm using an artist brush. I'm going to use some clear glaze. And can you see, here is my canvas that I've prepared in a similar way as what I've just shown. And here I have some copper leaf. Now what I'm going to do is I've positioned my stencil. So I've first stenciled with some paint so that the stencil design is nice and visible for those that don't know how to do it. I'll show in a bit how to stencil with paint. What I'm going to do next is in the gaps of my stencil, I'm going to use the clear glaze. Now the clear glaze is a concentrated pure acrylic sealant that's stunning to actually use on your flower pots outside or surfaces that you want stain UV and water resistant, but it's also an adhesive. So we decoupage with a glaze, we do transfers with a glaze. The options are endless. Okay, we have a question. Yes, guys.
Can I use the cloth for the first layer as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is, can I use the cloth for the first layer as well? There are no rules, and I think that is the most amazing thing when it comes to creativity. Make sure your surface is grease-free and just enjoy the process. So what I'm doing is I'm just using small pieces of copper leaf, and I'm using my artist brush to actually guide the pieces to just go and sit in the gaps. We have a question.
Kan ek eers stencil of Paris opsit om tekstuur te gee?
Okay, there is a question on my canvas. Can I first apply stencil of Paris to give texture? Oh, absolutely yes. Now, what is Stencil of Paris for those that don't know? It's a paste that looks like this, and I'll show how to do the application in a short while. So the Stencil of Paris, the options in terms of possibilities are endless. And I think as you ask the questions, you actually are giving those that are listening so many ideas in terms of, oh yes, that can work, it will be amazing. And I actually can't wait to see what you create after this session. Okay, so I'm just using my brush to guide the pieces of leaf to sit in the gaps. If I need more glue, I dip my paintbrush in the clear glaze, and that is the adhesive. And here actually what you need is some nice music. If you enjoy a glass of wine, this is the time that you will pour yourself one. If you like a strong cup of tea, this is the time when you will make yourself one, and you just enjoy the process. Okay, I'm just going to do a short piece, so that just a small section, so that you can actually see what happens, and that the rest of the process will make sense. And then I'm going to go to the Stencil of Paris. So I use my paintbrush to make sure that there are no wastage, and just press the leaf into the gaps and just allow a moment to dry. We have a question. Kaylee, I'm listening.
Will painting a sofa create a leathery feel to the material if you Tjhoko it, and will it crack when sitting thereon? How do you work with that when you're painting a sofa?
Okay, so there's a question about painting upholstered surfaces like a sofa. Now, when it comes to those surfaces, we do recommend that you always test a small section first. Even if it's somewhere underneath at the back, somewhere where you can't notice that you have tested paint onto the fabric. The reason for that is we know what wood feels like, and we know how paint reacts to wood. But because there are so many variances when it comes to fabric and the composition of the fabric, it's difficult to say what the result is going to be when we paint onto fabric surfaces, just because of the huge variety of fabrics. Okay, so paint changes the texture of fabric, and that's why we recommend to test first. When we paint something, for instance, like suede, that's when the surface gets a more leathery feel when we Tjhoko paint onto it, due to the texture of the fabric that we paint onto. I, for instance, am not fond of painting velvet surfaces, because of the fact that there's quite texture on velvet, and the paint dries hard. If you think of walls, it dries solid and hard. It changes the feel and the texture of velvet to be more hard. Whether it will crack or not depends on the firmness of the foam inside. So if your surface are firmly upholstered and not a lot of movement can happen with the foam, it's very unlikely that hairline cracks will appear. But if there's a lot of movement in your foam, paint can only stretch to a certain extent, and if we actually extend those boundaries, that's when hairline cracks appear on the surface. So a few tips. Test first to see if you like the texture that the paint creates on an upholstered surface. Secondly, we rather recommend that the fabric is a natural woven fabric than something synthetic. And thirdly, ensure that the foam underneath is firm to prevent hairline cracks from appearing later. Okay, there is a YouTube channel, and on that channel we actually have how-to videos that we've recently uploaded and previous videos that we've done for TV shows, for magazines, and we also share more tips and visual step-by-step information on how to do it. So we do recommend to first spray some water on that fabric and then paint onto a rather damp fabric surface, and allow for paint coats to be hand dry in between before you start applying the next, and it's not necessary to glaze afterwards. Tjhoko has a built-in sealer. Okay, I hope that's clear. If it's not, you are welcome to ask again. We also have a Tjhoko Paint support email address, support@tjokopaint.co.za, and we are always there to assist and help. Okay, so what I'm doing is this actually now just needs a minute to settle and to adhere to the surface. And then you can remove. And there you can see I haven't wasted any gold leaf, silver leaf or copper leaf. Excess glaze I just paint onto my surface just to make sure it's everywhere nicely, evenly if it happens. And there you have a gold leaf stencil work. Okay, I'm going to show how to stencil with paint and then also how to stencil with a stencil of Paris Face, just for additional tips and tricks. Okay, so let's close that and just share some more creative ideas. So I did bring a lot of leafy stencils from the shop. Let's start with this one and then we create something like a botanical. Okay, so when I paint with stencil with paint, the best tool to work with is a stencil brush. So this is what it looks like. It's got short stiff bristles. And then the next very important tip is to ensure that you don't add too much paint to your stencil brush. So the drier, the better. But I'm also not only going to work with one color, I'm going to be adventurous. So the first color I dip my paintbrush into is Creative Crystal. Crystal, cheers, Crystal. So Tjoko's colors are named after people that works in the factory, that works on the sites. We do not only make the paint, we physically paint with it every day. And I think that's also something that distinguishes us. We don't just make it, we use it every day. Yes, Kaylee, we have a question.
On what are you painting? Fabric? They want to know on what surface you're busy painting.
Currently I'm using an old piece of canvas. So it's a canvas that I found in my garage, and I'm using this as the canvas. Canvas meaning this is my surface, but this can also be walls. It can be furniture items. It can be fabric. So the surface that you work on and that Tjhoko can be used on is so versatile. For the live session, I'm just using something that's easy to demonstrate, but you can use it on so many surfaces. Fabrics, stunning to use. So what I'm doing is I'm using a stencil brush now on my surface that I have already textured and added some color and have been creative on. And the drier your stencil brush, the better. So you don't want any paint to seep in underneath your stencil. So I'm just working with some Creative Crystal on my background, and I'm not stenciling it everywhere. Can you see I'm being very random and playful? Okay, next I'm going to use a color like, let's say, Laughing Lee. This is my magical team. Lee, cheers. If it wasn't for all of their patience with me, I think I wouldn't be standing here tonight. Okay, so next, Laughing Lee, and I'm touching here and there. you can also secure your stencil with masking tape. It's something that I haven't done, but you can if you want to prevent it from moving, or if it's a wall that you're working on, please secure with masking tape. It will just make your life so much easier. Like I said, there's some laughingly, just some here and there. Okay, and now I'm going to add some, let me just see, some darker tones. Now the stunning thing about Tjhoko is that you can also mix colors. So if I see that my laughingly needs to be a bit darker, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a drop of laughingly in here, add a drop of matte black. I just need a darker tone of green that I don't have with me right now. I make it darker, so I mix my own color. Anything and everything can be fixed and changed, and this is something that I feel so passionate about, is the endless possibilities there are. Whatever you want to change, you can. Kaylee showing me there's a question. Yes, my Scott.
Is stenciling with metallics easy?
Yeah, absolutely. Stenciling with metallics, the question is stenciling with metallics easy? Exactly the same steps that I'm now doing, you can do with metallics. So the composition of metallic colors differ completely from normal Tjhoko colors, and the reason for that is there is true metallic pigment within the metallic colors, and that is what makes up the metallic color, is the pigment. So you need to mix well, same principles. You will just maybe have to repeat this step that I'm doing now as a single step twice, just to make sure that the metallics are nicely visible. The reason for that is the metallics are more opaque due to the composition of the metallic pigment, and to have a subtle metallic stencil work, one coat for more solid metallics, just add another. I don't think you need to add too much paint to your stencil brush. Same principles will apply. Okay, so I've mixed a nice dark green with laughingly and matte black. And I'm removing. Okay, so this is a stunning technique to use on a wall, on a furniture piece. It doesn't need to be with leaves. It can actually be with anything, any stencil design, and design is also something that's very personal. So if I want to repeat this now, I'm going to repeat the same stencil. Only step that I will change is my color selection. So I'm going to work with lighter colors now. So let's work with Olivia's pale. So when we started the Tjhoko journey, Crystal actually once said I should tell these stories. I don't know if everyone wants to hear it, but I'm going to share with you. So when we started Tjhoko in 2016, I was so excited. I actually held up a console jar in a shop, an empty 250ml, and I looked at it. And I said out loud in the store, I said, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with you, but I am going to do something with you. We are the third generation in our paint family business, so we live, eat and breathe paint, and I've always had this yearning to make a difference, and I just thought to myself, if I can start something where we empower people and create job opportunities, that's something that will make me so happy, and that's my heart and soul in this business. And from there, Tjhoko was born in a console jar, and Olivia was the first lady. Where's Olivia? Here she is. Olivia was the first lady. We have a book where we share all these stories with the faces and the names and the pictures of the people that represents the color. And we sat on a carpet and we structured our business plan, the two of us. Very special. Her African name is Nakele, and she recently had her second baby. Yes, Kaylee, is there a question?
What do you use to get rid of the sticker off the console glass after being used?
What do you use to get rid of the sticker? Some say spray and cook works well. Some like liquid and hot water. You can use, so you remove it, that's the best. Some like liquid hot water, and then you get a scotch pad, those scorch pads that you clean your pots with, you can use that to remove. I've heard that spray and cook works well. Cooking oil works well. Yeah, so you can get rid of it with soap and water, and a scotch pad works well, hot water. If anyone has other advice, please share with us. Okay, so I'm just stenciling, and I'm going to add some Tjhoko steel on here. And then I'm going to add some stencil of Paris just for those that need to know how to use it. Okay. So for those of you that are new on this live, it is a Q&A. So if you have those questions, I'm here to help and to answer them. So pop me those questions and I'll assist. Okay, so something that's happening in my life quite soon and that I'm hectically busy planning is Tjhoko Paint's new book. And this time I want the book to be, so the previous book is all about the story of Tjhoko, of the people that use Tjhoko. How stunning is that? Okay, let's just zooming in. I'm not sure what happens. She just pulled her face, and I'm going to add more color in a sec. Okay, so in our first book we told the story about Tjhoko and the people that represent the color. The next story I want to tell is the story about you, the user of Tjhoko, the rest of the family members of Tjhoko. And if you have a special story to tell, I have an email address. It is Nadine, Nadine, @tjokopaint.co.za, and I do want to hear those stories. I do want to add them in our book to make sure that it's there forever. Our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, to share with them what happened in the 21st century. Yes, Gayle?
Do you just clean the stencil with soap and water?
Yeah. So the question is, do I just clean the stencil with soap and water? Absolutely. So Tjhoko, the answer is yes, is water-based. So the stencil can be cleaned with soap and water after use. I'm just going to use a light color. Now, I'm going to work with Stencil of Paris paste. As you can see, it's evening. There's no sign of food in my house yet because we are painting. I'm just going to get a plate. Okay, so Tjhoko, water-based, eco-friendly, non-toxic. Yes, you can use it in your dinner plates, wash your plates, and reuse. So what I'm going to do is I'm just scooping out a block of Stencil of Paris paste. Okay, I'm actually going to do 2 blocks. In this block, I'm going to add some of our Olivia. And just a drop. So here I'm adding some Olivia. Here I'm adding some Goodness. 2 different tones. And Maestro is joining. Maestro. Okay. Maisie, kom kyk hierso wat ek vir jou. Kom kyk. Maestro. Are you going to help me, Maisie? Kom hierso. Kom sien. Okay. Bly net kyk daar. Okay, so what I've done is I've mixed a little bit of Tjhoko colors within my Stencil of Paris base. Now, due to the fact that everything is water-based, you can mix, all the products can be mixed together. I am not going to apply the paste everywhere, so I'm being playful. And what the paste does, it gives texture to the surface, to your stencil work. Please go like, subscribe and turn on the notifications of the YouTube channel. It's completely free, and I do these things because we want to share ideas. I'm a firm believer, if your space is beautiful and organized, we actually can tackle more things in life. If we have control over the things that we can control, it's easier to accept the things that we don't have control over. Okay, we have a question. Yes, Scales.
How often do you change your brushes? I seem to use a new brush every month. Is that normal?
Okay, so how often do you change your brushes? I seem to use a new brush every month. So it depends on the surface you are working on. For instance, you can see how much this brush works. This is a Hamilton's Enzyme brush. It's good quality. It really has worked a lot. So what I do is, after I've worked with it, I wash it well in water. I make sure I dry it properly, and I put it away until my next use. Also, something that's harsh on brushes is the surface you're working on. So, say for instance, the surface is rough, the surface damages the brush, you will use more brushes. So I think it's the quality of the brush, the surface, and take good care of it. Some brush manufacturers actually told me the other day that some brushes are for single use. I've never used a brush only once. A month is a good time frame, depending on surfaces, and then also the amount of work you do with it. Okay, so let's see if I remove this, what it looks like. So there you can see the darker behind. You can see the next stencil design that was done. You can see texture. And this now can flow. And you can even add another layer on top of this. I'm going to share another idea. Please let me know if it doesn't make sense. So I've just scraped the Stencil of Paris here and there, not everywhere. It's up to you. If you want solid Stencil of Paris, you can do it. If you, like the question that we received earlier, if I want to create texture on my canvas, can I do it with Stencil of Paris? Now, say for instance, as you can see, this section is not working with what I've created here at the top. I actually love what I've done here. This was to show an idea and broadly. So if I want to change this, let's do it. So I'm creating texture. Create some texture there as well. So this is to create texture. I'm going to do a balance that is not only on this section, but on different areas as well. I can absolutely create some texture. And now what I'm going to do is, my cloth is still here, that I've used right in the beginning. I'm actually going to turn it upside down because there's more paint on the bottom section. Use my brayer and change. So never are you limited to make changes to anything. Okay, and we have a question. Yes, Gail.
If Tjhoko is water-based, can you use it on an item that will be exposed to the weather?
Okay. So if Tjhoko is water-based, can you apply it on an item that's exposed to weather? And the answer is yes. So although Tjhoko is water-based, it doesn't mean that when it's dry and cured that it's going to be washed away by water. What water-based implies is, when we manufacture Tjhoko paint, we don't use harsh chemicals that are dangerous to the environment, and these chemicals are called solvent-based chemicals. So we use water and raw materials that are designed to mix into water to make good quality paint. When the paint has dried and cured, water won't wash it away. But what we also recommend to use is to apply our clear glaze. Say for instance, you are painting something like garden flower pots or furniture, patio furniture outside. You need something to make sure that the surface is UV and water resistant, especially if it's going to be exposed to elements. And for that purpose, we have the clear glaze. After you have painted, you make sure you allow your 4-hour drying or curing time. Coastal areas, when it's wet and humid, temperatures impact the drying time of paint, then you need to wait longer. And then you apply your clear glaze. It's in concentrated form, so we recommend to dilute it with 30% water. Easier method or an easier explanation: 3 parts glaze, 1 part water. I will use the lid of the glaze. 3 parts glaze, 1 part water. Best is to use cooled boiled water. Tap water will contaminate paint products. If you have any left over and you want to store it in an airtight container, rather use cooled boiled water, and then you do the application with a damp microfiber cloth. 4 hours, or in wetter conditions, 24 hours or 12 hours later. And there, once again, the YouTube channel is very informative to show you exactly how to do the application, how to mix, and what the precise steps are. There's another question.
Please tell me, why is my rose gold so thin when I paint it on? Yours always looks like a solid color, but mine comes out like a wash and has no effect.
Okay.
I want to add something. You must maybe just make it clear that this is not the rose gold paint, but rather the gold leaf.
Okay, so
there's no confusion.
What we have used here was the copper leaf sheet, so it wasn't a metallic paint. Okay, so we used the copper leaves to create this effect. So with metallics, I'm sorry Kaylee, we've now painted over. With metallics, the composition of the metallics differ to normal paint color. So it's tiny metal particles, and you will see metal pieces that actually makes up the metal color. So what you need to do is, there comes a stirring stick with a 250 ml, not with a 25 ml. So if you are working with a 25 ml, a small jar, you need to mix well. The back of a spoon works well, so it needs to be, let me show you. It needs to be something that's flat like this. And then you mix well, you make sure that it mixes with the rest of the liquid in the container. And something that we also recommend is, when we work with metallics, is to first paint a Tjhoko color underneath. In a recent live video that I did, and that video is available on our YouTube channel, Tjhoko Paint is the YouTube channel's name. And we show different uses with the metallics. It can either be a light color or a dark color, but that's important that there's a Tjhoko color as a foundation. And then on that, you will see your first coat won't be perfect because it's not solid paint pigment, it's metal. But once you have dried, so important is to wait between coats for your paint to dry before you start applying the next. And then after your first coat, and that coat is dry, your second coat, you will see a clear difference. Okay, if you have more questions, pop it to support@tjokopaint.co.za. We will gladly assist. Yes, Kaylee, there's another question.
I copied your cheese board last week and it came out so beautifully, thank you. But when I wiped off the antique brown glaze, after I applied it, it also took off the white undercoat. I did like it, so it was okay, but I just wondered why.
The white
Undercoat.
So was the white dry? So with the glazes, you will see on the instructions on the lid. So when I remember, because we did the stencil of Paris, Then we painted it white, and then we did the antique glaze. Okay, important. If you go watch that video again, you will see that everything for the life was prepared in phases. I'm going to tell you, and then for next time you will know how to fix. So stencil of Paris was done. The stencil of Paris needs to be dry. Then we've painted the one side of it, and that had to dry. So important that that's why it wiped away. That section needs to dry well before you start applying the antique glaze. And also, once again, weather plays a role in terms of how long things take to dry. So on the instructions, and maybe it's my mistake, I apologize for that because I don't think I've mentioned it in the live. On the instructions on the glazes, it says wait at least 4 hours. But when we work on something like raw timber, raw cement, anything that's raw, it actually absorbs the paint easier and it grips easily, more easily, and the curing time is less than on something like that's smooth, like melamine and glass. So there a definite 4 hours or longer in cooler climates are necessary for your paint coat to dry before we start applying glazes. Whether it's the clear glaze, like I've mentioned with the garden pots or furniture outside, or the antique glaze to create an antique effect. Moet ek langer staan?
Ja, reg.
Oh, I need to speak out louder. Could everyone hear me? Is there someone that complains? Okay, where did someone not hear me? So important is for the paint to cure and dry before we start applying the glazes, especially if it's something smoother than raw wood. Sorry, my mic broke, that I'm on the lapel mic that I usually wear. And then so just wait for the paint to dry longer, okay? And then your problem will be solved. Yes, Kaylee, next question.
What is the time period a person has to use the leftover Tjhoko paint before it goes hard?
Okay, what is the time period that a person needs to use Tjhoko paint before the leftover Tjhoko paint before it goes hard? Very good question. So there are a few things that contaminate paint, and the reason why your Tjhoko will go hard is if it's exposed to air. So if maybe the lid wasn't tightened properly, or it was exposed to air for a long period of time, it's that last bit and piece, and it was standing open and it wasn't covered, the oxygen dries out the paint, and that we call air contamination. So tip for future, don't do what I'm busy doing here. Okay, don't do what I do what I say. Best will be is to decant paint as much as you need at a time, and close your jars nicely well, clean it, apply the wax paper, or my mom just used plastic like glass wrap or the lunch box, the sandwich plastic bag. She cuts it and she puts it back, and she makes sure that she looks after her paint. So don't let your paint be exposed to air. That's what makes it hard. Something else that contaminates paint is dirty paint equipment and water. And that's also why I would never recommend to dip the paintbrush in the paint, but rather to decant some in a container and work from there. So you don't know what contaminants are on this brush. I don't know. I live close to the ocean. There might be mold growing on here that I'm not aware of. And now I dip my brush in my paint jar, and those germs start growing in something that's moist, like paint. Okay, so now I'm going to, so Stencil of Paris, there are many things that you can do. So we've created a section. We are changing our canvas to make sure everything tells the same story. Okay. Kaylee's giving me a time frame. So something that's so special, myself and Kaylee started this journey in COVID hard lockdown because I thought I was going to go crazy, because we did not know what was going to happen. I think we all were in the same boat. And I actually painted Tjhoko, everything in and around my house, just to keep my sanity. Vic is the editor of the Home magazine, which actually became a friend over the years, asked me, Nadine, what is your last mission with Tjhoko? When are you going to stop? Of course we are working hard, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And I said, Vic, is the day that Tjhoko will actually be accepted as a verb in the dictionary. That's the day when I will stop. So in our house, we don't say we paint, we say we Tjhoko. We Tjhoko everything. And then my brother has a little boy, he's only 2, but he can't say a K. So whenever we visit them up in Gauteng, he says, come Dean, we are going to Toto. So we Toto everything. Okay. So we have a question.
If the paint goes hard, can you soften it again?
So if the paint goes hard, can you soften it again? Tjhoko will throttle me if he hears me saying this, but you can. You can add a little bit of cool boiled water, mix it through well, and use it again. I have done it so many times. I know that chemists will tell you don't do it, but we just don't tell them what we do. Yes?
Can one use a cool hair dryer to dry the paint a little bit faster?
Don't tell the chemist. So the question is, can one use a cool hair dryer to make the paint dry faster? Don't tell the chemist I told you this, but yes you can. So when we work on TV set, we all have hair dryers because things need to dry quicker, faster. And then we dry it. Something that I will still just recommend is, before you apply the glaze, is to allow that curing process is properly done. But even if I have to prep something for Thursday Lives, I had to do a TV shoot or a shoot for the Home magazine quite recently, and I spread out paint on a canvas, on a big piece of canvas that we use it as a drop sheet. And that evening I had hair dryers and fans tilted to blow and dry everything. You can. You absolutely can. We do it all the time. Don't tell everyone I said you can. You can. Okay, I'm living proof that it's a success. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm actually not painting. I am using a paint scraper on my surface that has texture. There was someone that asked before, can you add stencil of Paris to create texture? And I can see this canvas I've used for many Thursday Lives to show different techniques has some texture underneath. And what I'm doing, instead of painting, and this is, sorry, it might be noisy, instead of painting with a paintbrush and to create some effect, I'm just using a paint scraper. Can you see how I'm blending colors together? Also stunning technique to do on walls and even on furniture piece. So there's texture underneath, the stencil of Paris that I've shown earlier with a paint scraper, how I spread it on the surface. And now we just create some texture. And I want this cloth again, okay? And I want to roll over here, just to make it flow in nicely. Stunning is that. I think this is my next most favorite technique. And now what I'll do is I'll just repeat the stencil work there as well. So yeah, we don't eat, we don't do dishes. You can see we paint with everything in the kitchen. This is so enjoyable. Okay. And of course, something that I mentioned quite often is that color is personal choice. So you work with colors that makes you happy. We are currently in Cape Town, and together with Kim Williams at the Decorex at a beautiful stand that she has designed with the Nolantando new collection, which is absolutely amazing. Stunning South African designer. And Kim, it's lovely to be partnered with you there. I hope the show is a huge success. And then this is our live Q&A session for this Thursday evening. Thank you for those that have joined. If you have more questions, or maybe if we perhaps missed something, we did try to answer everything. Pop me an email, nadine@tjokopaint.co.za, and I'll be happy to assist and to help. Now, we reached some milestones this week. We reached our 100,000th follower on our Facebook Tjhoko Creations group. Thank you for a beautiful, sincere community. I think it's lovely to know that we have a Facebook following of such beautiful, sincere, authentic, true people that uplifts one another, that shares freely. It's lovely. It's lovely to be Mama Tjhoko of you all. We have a winner that the team has selected. Now, Kaylee, is that what you want to ask me? Okay, Kaylee's just prompting me. She's so afraid I forget something. She has a reason to be worried. So we have a winner. I just need to see what the name is. Nadine Vosloo. Nadine Vosloo, if you are watching, will you please send us your details so that we can send you a Tjhoko gift hamper? You can email me directly, nadine@tjokopaint.co.za, or lee@support@tjokopaint.co.za, or one of the team members will get in touch with you to get all your details. It's been lovely to be here. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for a lovely first half of the year. I hope that the next half will be filled with creative, colorful, and beautiful moments. And I hope that I'll have the opportunity to inspire and share those moments with all of you. Keep going. This is my message for tonight. Keep going. We just keep going. We keep on doing what we do. We don't allow anything to derail us. And remember, if it doesn't say Tjhoko paint, it's not. Love to you all. Bye.